Have we got any call from we got any call from Lisa? I got nothing. Good evening. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Will you please join me for the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nettleworth?
Here.
Commissioner Clement? Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Here. Here.
Before I would like to make a small change to the agenda before I look for a motion. I'd like to move the presentation of the Clatsop County Firefighters Appreciation Proclamation up first, so we can take care of that first. And so I would like to move presentation C to A, and we'll call that A1, and then move the Fish Lake Dam repairs down to C. So I'll look for an amended motion to approve the agenda.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So great, we have some presentations tonight. Our first presentation is the Clatsop County Firefighter Appreciation Proclamation, and we had a nice cake out there, and I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. So first, we're going to look for a motion to approve the resolution order proclaiming Clatsop County's appreciation for its firefighters and authorize the chair to sign the proclamation. Before we do that, I'll give a little informational summary. Clatsop County Fire and Rescue Departments and districts are composed of volunteer and professional staffs that provide residents and visitors protection from emergency situations under difficult and often dangerous circumstances. The attached proclamation is intended to recognize and honor the work of these men and women. This dedication was exhibited in particular in August of 2017 as several of the county's agencies responded to the governor's declaration of conflagration. Clatsop County strike teams and individual resources were deployed to assist with fire suppression efforts at the Eagle Creek Fire, Millie Fire, and Chetco Bar Fire. This activity was worthy of recognition in itself, but as the busy Oregon wildfire season came to a close, California's wildfire season was just beginning. In October, Clatsop County formed a strike team that deployed to Sonoma County for 12 days, and in December, yet another strike team was formed and deployed to the Thomas Fire for 18 days. The dedication and sacrifice required of our first responders, who respond every day and who heeded the call to help our neighbors around Oregon and again in California, is remarkable and worthy of recognition. I'd like to give a hand for all those folks. And now I'd look for a motion to approve the resolution order proclaiming Clatsop County's appreciation for its firefighters and authorize the chair to sign and read the proclamation.
So moved.
We have a motion. And
I move to approve the resolution order proclaiming Clatsop County's appreciation for firefighters and authorize the chair to sign, then read that proclamation.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. This is a proclamation recognizing the efforts of Clatsop County firefighters. Resolution in order. Clatsop County has no greater responsibility than ensuring the safety of its citizens and all those who visit the county. And the departments and districts that comprise Clatsop County's fire and rescue capability are staffed with trained professionals and volunteers who undertake to provide a service dedicated to the safety of citizens and visitors. And those personnel showed extreme dedication and sacrifice when they deployed to multiple events in Oregon and California during a long and difficult 2017 wildland fire season. And these men and women courageously offered to respond selflessly to guard citizens from daily emergencies and large disasters. and work tirelessly to help ensure the collective safety of Clatsop County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners proclaims their appreciation for the hard work and dedication of the county's firefighters and encourages all citizens to recognize their efforts to creating a more safe and prepared society. Dated this 11th day of April, 2018. Again, thank you. Congratulations. All right, our next,
And
Oh, please.
You folks have training or something tonight, right? Okay, so we won't feel bad if you have to leave.
great. Our next presentation is the revision to FEMA flood insurance maps. Page number 1. Good evening.
Good evening. So while the PowerPoint is coming up, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Gail Henriksen. I'm the Community Development Director, and this is my first presentation, so I know I haven't officially met everybody here, but I did want to introduce myself. I wanted to take a few minutes tonight to talk about a process that we're going to be starting with your next meeting with Ordinance 1803. And this is related to the map changes and text changes that FEMA is requesting. And because the county participates in the National Flood Insurance Program, there are certain requirements we have to fulfill in order for our residents to continue to be eligible for flood insurance through that program. The process has been going on now since, since 2016. And it started after we adopted the current maps, which were effective in 2010. And there were apparently anomalies in the methodology that was used, which caused FEMA to go back and look at the way that the maps were drawn. And so they came back to us in 2016 with some proposed revisions. They held public meetings throughout that time, including one in August of 2016 down at the Seaside Convention Center to get public input. Then they kicked off in 2017 a review period. They did not receive any comments back on those proposed map changes. And then in December of last year, they issued a letter to us saying that those map revisions would become effective on June 20th of this year. And so we, on March 20th, took our proposed language and revisions to the Planning Commission. They voted 4-1 to recommend that the board will approve this. Moving forward, we anticipate bringing the ordinance to you at your next meeting, April 25th, and then at a second hearing on May 9th. And that's in order for us to complete the adoption by June 20th. So there are 3 parts to the revisions that we're going to be looking at. The first one relates to the flood insurance rate maps, and those will affect properties that are primarily along the coastline in the unincorporated area. We also have to adopt a new revised flood insurance study. And then they have also requested that we update our code for the flood hazard overlay area, which is in the Land and Water Development and Use Ordinance. So this is an example of a mailing that we did to the property owners along the coastline, showing them the map changes. The areas that are in the light green are areas that are being removed from the flood hazard area. The areas in red are being added to the flood hazard area. And there are approximately 700 properties in unincorporated Clatsop that will be affected by these map changes. This is just showing you the flood insurance study that those map changes are based on, and we have to adopt that. And then we get to the revisions to the Land and Water Development Code. And the most significant change that we are being asked to make by FEMA relates to this definition for development. Right now, the county has 7 activities that we exempt from having to get permits if you're doing that type of activity in the floodplain. And it's things that affect not only us, putting up signs and markers as a public entity, but also private property owners who may be putting up a small shed, less than 200 square feet, or storing equipment and materials on their property, and things like that. FEMA has asked us to remove all those exemptions, which means that in the future, all of those activities and everybody who's conducting them would now have to get a permit to do that type of development. The areas in the county that this will, unincorporated county that this will affect are the areas that are shown in the purple and the dark blues and the dark purples. So that's just to show you what the northwest quadrant, the northeast quadrant, southeast, and southwest. They've also asked us to include specific language about how you construct if you're in certain zones, and that includes the V zones or the velocity zones, which are primarily the oceanfront zones. It also includes below-ground, below-grade crawl spaces, and any construction that's in the 100-year floodplain in the AO zone. I want to be very clear that it does not prohibit construction, but it does get very specific about how you will construct your buildings if you do want to build there. So when we did take it to the Planning Commission back in March, we did hear from quite a few residents and property owners. We heard a lot of concerns about additional regulations being placed onto properties. We had questions about why does the county participate even in the National Flood Insurance Program, and also general concerns about how the county will implement these new regulations going forward. So again, our next steps as we move forward, we'll be bringing Ordinance 1803 back to you for the first hearing, your next meeting on April 25th, second hearing on May 9th. And there is a 30-day appeal period following that, and then the new maps and the flood insurance study and the text amendments would go into effect on June 20th. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Does the board have any questions for?
Sure.
Please.
Well, do you remember earlier when we talked about having an overlay zone so that property owners would need to let prospective buyers want it? And that too generated a great deal of negative response. I think there was a concern that we were impacting property values and possibly the cost and availability of homeowners insurance and other really unintended financial consequences. So it's important that we go forward in a way that reassures and confirms the best and still deals with all of these concerns. Are we looking to have more information from the Planning Commission? I mean, we've had some joint Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners meetings that have been useful, it seems, in some way for us to understand based on their experience. I don't know if we're contemplating this now. I'm just curious because I know there's a lot of community concern about the impacts.
Yes, at this point, we're not, we have no plans to bring it back to the Planning Commission. The language changes that are being requested by FEMA are, for the most part, not negotiable. It's in either you adopt it or you don't. And if we choose not to adopt, then that puts our eligibility to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program in jeopardy.
That would seem to be a compelling reason to go ahead. But I noticed there was one dissenting vote at the Planning Commission. Can you help us understand the logic of the dissenter?
The general impression I got was that he also shared concerns about impacts for additional government regulations. He did not give a specific reason why he chose to vote against.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So what will getting a permit entail with the new requirements?
Okay. With the new requirements, they'll be applying for a flood hazard overlay permit. Depending on what the item is that they're building and where they're building it, if it's in a floodplain versus the floodway, there are different building requirements in terms of the actual construction methods that are being used. You want to make sure that you have certain types of breakaway walls, and it's a review that is conducted by staff. It's a type 1 permit, so there is no public comment period. Typically, the ones that we're processing right now are probably about a week to 2 weeks to process.
So they won't be denied a permit if they comply with what the requirements are?
Precisely.
And this applies to new construction?
New construction and substantial improvements, which are defined, if I remember correctly, as alterations that are more than 50% of the value of the structure.
I've got two questions. One, all the work that's involved with this is anticipating ocean levels rising also?
I cannot speak to the methodology that FEMA used, so I don't know if they've accounted for that or not.
But I imagine they would.
Again, I
knows?
really couldn't
Okay.
say.
Count on it.
The other question I have is you know the answer to this, but since you brought it up, maybe you could give us a quick answer. You said one of the concerns was, why does the county need national flood insurance? Can you give us a quick answer on that?
Yeah, my understanding is when you participate voluntarily in the flood insurance program, it enables your residents and property owners who are required to get flood insurance to do so at a cheaper rate than if they had to go into the private market to get that. And if for some reason we were not going to continue in this program, my general understanding is that people who have policies in that program right now can continue to have them until they expire, at which point they'd have to go into the private market. It may affect real estate values. It would certainly probably have an impact on the real estate market in general. But the main thing is that it does help our residents and property owners get lower insurance rates.
So by the county participating in this program, it helps to give property owners discounts on their own individual insurance,
Yes,
flood insurance, national flood. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff? Thank you for that report, it's very informing.
Thank you.
Our next presentation tonight is the Fishhawk Lake Dam repair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we have representatives here, so.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Bush, and I'm the chair of the Fishhawk Lake Project Solutions Committee. We are a committee of the Fishhawk Lake Reserve and Community. I had sent previously a packet of information, and the first 3 pages of that packet was sort of a comprehensive abstract that sort of described the lake and some of the situations and conditions that we have out there. That is then followed by these slides that I'll run through rather quickly to sort of share with the council in Clatsop County sort of the conditions we have and how valuable that area is, not only to the county, but to the environment and to the ecology that we have. So this is just sort of an overview right here, picture that we're first looking at. And we have arrived at, we started this venture at the end of 2012, 2013 is where we really kicked it off for a project plan in which to come up with a solution on how we can resolve some of the sediment problems, some of the lake quality problems, the fish passage. We have sort of a older fish ladder that was state-of-the-art in 1967. It no longer sort of complies with new regulations, so that is also on our agenda, and a subsequent project that we will be putting in a new fish ladder for the coho and the steelhead that we have. So as we go through, this is sort of the environment in the community. It's a lake, a lot of valuable fish, clean natural environment, a lot of resources. We go on a little bit. The existing lake level is controlled by what is called a drop drain spillway, and that's what you see in the center here. To the right of that is actually the spillway that comes out that goes beneath part of the lake and underneath the dam. So basically it's a large orifice 10 by 10 concrete culvert that comes out of the concrete structure in the lake, passes beneath the dam, and then continues downstream where it does the outfall. So we've got changing environmental conditions. We also have changing regulatory commissions that we need to comply with. As we go on a little bit, this is the fish ladder, and these are the migratory species that we have. The cutthroat trout is not necessarily a migratory species, but we do have the coastal sea run cutthroat that do come up to the lake, but we have not actually captured or discovered any of those in the lake at this time. But we do have the lamprey eel, the coho salmon, as well as the steelhead, and those are all native. They are not influenced by any hatcheries by any means. As we go on a little bit, this is sort of where we're located. It's the majority of the lake is in Clatsop County, and we do have portions of it in the upper portion that is in Columbia County. So it's a pretty large contributor to the tax revenue base of both those counties. This is some information that we've recently pulled together just to sort of identify, not only for ourselves, but for the surrounding communities, how much of an impact that this area contributes. There are approximately 240 properties out there. We have a number of full-time residents as well as a lot of part-time residents. And you can see from some of the numbers the amount of dollars that we contribute in the commercial businesses just in these northwest cities. So as we go on a little bit more, this is one that actually combines a lot of the utilities, the household services, businesses, property taxes, of what the residents contribute, which is over $2 million in the Northwest economy here. So we feel that we are a pretty important contributor. It's a viable community, and we want to take care of it. This is a view standing on the dam, looking sort of northeast, and an overview of the drop drain spillway, and right behind it is the log boom. So this is an idyllic type picture. As we go on a little bit, in 2007, we had sort of the perfect storm, and I'm sure Clatsop County remembers some of those as well. We, by the way, had a lot of involvement from FEMA at that time as well, because this is what that same drop drain looked like the day that we were within a couple inches of overtopping the dam. We did end up losing a road, and we had over 60 properties or homes that were flooded. So there was a fair amount of activity from FEMA and a number of other agencies that were involved. You can thus see behind that log boom, it's rather a large pile or a lot of floating debris that not only came down Fishhawk Stream, but came from other properties, docks, boats. And when the log boom broke, we know where it all attempted to go, down the drain. And that's what led to some of the almost near catastrophic event that we had. So here's a picture it's taken a little bit further away, and you can see all the debris up against the log boom. So we had quite the emergency situation, and we were, had we lost the dam, the surrounding infrastructure and even the community downstream probably would have been devastated at that time. It had taken a while to clean that up. So what got us here today, it's basically the existing environment and the infrastructure. A lot of watershed runoff. We've got a fixed infrastructure. We've got aging infrastructure. It's been there for quite a few years. Not only is it the infrastructure for flood control, but it's also for fish passage and the quality of the water that we have. We have lost almost 50% of the capacity of the lake, and that includes the depth due to the sediment infill that comes in. When you have sediment infill, when you have warm summer temperatures, you have warm water near the surface, cold water down below, but because of the anaerobic actions, there's not much oxygen down there at those times. And that's all caused because of the sediment and the weed that we have. And by being able to remove some of that sediment, we can resolve not only flood control, water quality, fish passage, and the quality of the water. So what got us here were basically the FLIPS, the Fishhawk Lake Project Solutions. We're a special committee. We started in 2012 to basically research and develop an infrastructure program that could improve the lake. So these are some of the goals that we had created at that time. Obviously, increase spillway capacity. The spillway, the way it is right now, even if you have it wide open and we have no way to control that, when the water comes over the top, it just falls into a large bucket, a lot of colliding forces. So even the outfall spillway is less than half full because of the colliding forces. So being able to increase that spillway is going to have a tremendous contribution to what we're looking at. Improve fish passage. Another one here, reduce the impact of sediment is what we're looking at. And then down here, improve the lake water quality, which is for all the migratory species that we have. Current lake conditions, a couple of the slides that we look at help contribute or define what some of the lake problems are, and basically what we're referring to as a shallow lake depth right now. And these are some of the things. Water's too warm, anaerobic reactions that deplete dissolved oxygen, infrastructure, noxious weeds that come in, and then also higher potential for algae blooms. This is some of the data. A number of years ago, we started a lake monitoring program, and so over all these years, excuse me, we've been collecting a fair amount of data on water temperatures, dissolved oxygen. We've done sediment samples. We've got bathymetric studies. So we've got a lot of data that gives us intelligence so that we can speak to the regulatory agencies when they start asking questions on what we're looking at doing. This slide's a little faded out a little bit, but it sort of gives an indication of the amount of capacity that we've lost since the lake was first constructed. And at this time, it was upwards of probably closer to 47% based on the calculations. So this is a bathymetric study we did in 2014, and there's some interesting characteristics here. If you sort of, on the upper left-hand corner, the overlay there, you see that sort of dark blue. That's the original stream channel from Fishhawk Stream from 1967. And actually, when you see the overlay from 1967, it follows that exact same path. What creates that is what is called an underdrain. It's a 30-inch culvert beneath the drain. This is what sort of substantiated that if we could cut a large opening into the drop drain spillway to basically create an underdrain system, very similar to this, because that dark blue is anywhere from 18 to 20 feet to maybe 15 feet, and that's the original stream channel. So when that stream flows through that underdrain, it basically flushes whatever sediment and maintains the depth. So as we go on a little bit, on this one, now a little bit better picture here, so you can see where the stream bed is. On the bottom of that, you see sort of a little red indicator, not really an indicator down there, but that is where the drop drain is. And you can see in around that area, we're anywhere from probably 10 feet to less than 10 feet in depth. So, and then thus you can see the rest of the lake as well. Progress on finding solution, these are some things that we've done over the years. We do have design memorandums of understanding with a number of the regulatory agencies right now. This is our proposed solution. We've got an existing drop drain there. That infrastructure is aging a little bit. So our solution is we would build a slide gate at the bottom of this drop drain, have it a controlled gate, so that we would only operate that gate during high water type events. Last year, 2016 to 17, we had 3 high water events where the day before, you're probably 2 feet below the top of that drop drain. The next morning, it was 2 feet over the top. And the water comes in very, very fast. So by being able to create this system, we can open and control that gate at high water events. The high water events would take place similar to what this is demonstrating right now, where when there is water flowing through the lake, it basically passes new incoming sediment as well as passes existing sediment. By adding a slide gate at the bottom, we can accelerate that, basically going from a 30-inch culvert to a 10 by 10 foot gate. We then get larger gully erosion as well as what is called plate erosion that will pass incoming sediment as well as flush existing sediment. We're working closely with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife to look at ways that we can pass sediment, because below the stream, it's about a 3.5-mile stretch from below the lake to Nehalem River. And it's sort of deprived of sediment, gravels, and everything else, which is sort of the native environment for fish. that's a little bit deprived, so they would love to see us pass this material. This is a scale model that we built a couple of years ago to sort of visually demonstrate what the new infrastructure would do and how it would work. And if you're interested at some time, you could take a look at that YouTube video, and it sort of describes how the process would work. This is another emergency spillway. This is another side project we're also looking at doing in conjunction with the gated spillway, that should things fail, we need to have redundancies in place. This is a redundant system that should the water come up above the drop drain, should the gate fail for some reason, the water would be diverted through this emergency spillway, thus saving the dam. So this is sort of what the emergency spillway roadway dip would look like, and I've already spoken with one of the individuals from the county about, because this is sort of a county road that goes over the dam, so we would set up procedures and controls when that emergency spillway, if ever it would get activated. And because we'd have to close the road so we don't have the traveling public going across at that time. So, but that's what the emergency spillway would be like. Our proposed solution accomplishes 3 of the 4 goals. With the addition of a new ladder, we basically accomplished the 4th goal. And all of those are in our program to move forward. This is sort of a little bit of a timeline that sort of shows where we've been coming from and some of the activities that we've got going on. We were approved through our board there this past summer to move forward with phase 2 engineering. So we've done all the modeling, we've done all the letters of memorandum. We're now moving towards the construction design of that, with the hopes of finishing design in summer of 2018 and the start of construction in 2019. That is what our current plan is. So as we go just one more here, forecasted start of construction. Basically what we're looking at from the county and our involvement with the county is we'd be looking for a form of letter of support supporting Fishhawk Lake, the reserve and community, as far as what our agenda is, what our program is, and what we're looking to achieve, not only for Columbia and Clatsop County, but for the community, because we feel we are part of the community. And we want to stay there, and we want to take care of that community. So with that, I'll address any questions that you may have.
Mr.
Thank you
Chair?
for that report. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Wow, Fishhawk Lake rocks. I mean, I hope that we agree that this is something that we want to support, because this is an example of really superb community self-reliance and collecting data and moving forward and collaborating effectively with stakeholders. And so I really hope we can support this.
Any other commissioners? Yeah, I think, well, by consensus, yeah, we support this project, and we could, I see Cam nod his head, and we could get a letter of support together for you.
We'll figure out how to get that done.
You betcha.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a couple questions. I support it. I attended yesterday and hope to tomorrow the Columbia River Estuary Conference. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they have it every 2 years. It's really fabulous. And they were talking about sediment and how necessary it is. And in particular with the ocean level rising, that it's really helpful to have that. And I can't explain it any more than that.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
But, so when you complete this, the sediment that's coming in, it'll move further and get in place in places that will be beneficial.
Yes, correct. Right now, if you've been along, well, some of the northwest streams, you've got sort of that hard plate that is sort of barren of any kind of debris or gravels or anything else. Down below Fishhawk Lake, there's a number of areas like that where it is not a spawning ground at all for any of the fish. It's not natural for the fish to sort of reside in those areas. They need the debris, the wooded structures, and everything else. Some of our other program plans, we're working with the Upper Nehalem Watershed Council, planting trees and putting large timber structures actually up above the lake to even preemptively stall some of the sediment, because you can do entrapment of the sediment, and it also builds better habitat for spawning salmon and steelhead that go upriver. So we've got a lot of sort of alliances we're working on, but definitely the sediment, it's like we don't want it, but there's also a lot of fish and species that do want it. And we just need to get it in the right place.
Well, I really appreciate all the work you and your group have done on this. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Again, thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
Have a great evening.
Okay. So the only thing I would ask, if you are kind to give us a letter of support, if you could have it maybe in a couple weeks, because we've got a number of opportunities to use these, and we've got tremendous support with a lot of the different counties, the soil and water districts, ODFW, the forestry department, and it really helps to bolster our case when we go in front of these regulatory agencies. So,
Absolutely. We'll do our best to get that right away.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you this week.
okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we have some proclamations tonight. Our first proclamation is the county would like to proclaim April 2018 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clatsop County. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. In 2016, in Clatsop County alone, more than 120 children were victims of abuse and neglect as determined by the courts, a number believed to be well below the actual number given that many cases go unreported. The proclamation urges citizens to be more aware of the effects of child abuse and neglect in order to help foster healthy parenting in healthy communities. So I would look for a motion to approve the resolution.
I move to approve the resolution proclaiming April to be the Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clatsop County.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to proclaim April to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clatsop County. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I'd like to read that for us. In the matter of proclaiming April 2018 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month, every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment, free from the dangers of harmful effects of child abuse and neglect. Child abuse and neglect impacts our entire society and can cause traumatic, psychological, emotional, and physical harm, resulting in long-term economic and societal costs. Child-focused prevention and intervention programs offer positive alternatives and outcomes for children and encourage families to develop strong, durable ties to their communities. Child abuse prevention succeeds through partnerships among parents, child welfare agencies, mental and physical health providers, schools, law enforcement agencies, churches, business, and community members by fostering loving, supportive, and violence-free homes. All citizens need to be made more aware of the effects of child abuse, neglect, and prevention in order to encourage and model healthy parenting in healthy communities. Now therefore, we, the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, dated this 11th day of April, 2018. Thank you. Our next proclamation is our annual volunteer recognition, and this proclamation is to thank and recognize volunteers through Clatsop County by proclaiming April 15th through 21st, 2018 Volunteer Week. I have a presentation by Jane. Is she here? Oh, okay. So I'll just go ahead and read the informational summary, and then we'll move for a motion. Established in 1974 by Points of Light, National Volunteer Week has grown exponentially in scope each year, drawing the support and endorsement of all subsequent U.S. presidents, governors, mayors, and other respected elected officials. National Volunteer Week celebrates ordinary people doing extraordinary things. To improve communications across the nation, and Volunteer Week highlights the enormous contributions that volunteers make every day. This year's National Volunteer Week acknowledges the vital contributions of volunteers and is about celebrating the impact of volunteer service and the power of change makers to come together to tackle tough challenges, build stronger, more vibrant communities in Clatsop County. We are fortunate to have many volunteers to celebrate. I'd look for a motion to adopt and authorize the chair to sign the attached resolution and order proclaiming April 15th through 21st, 2018 Volunteer Week in Clatsop County.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt this resolution and authorize you to sign it, designating this as Volunteer Week in Clatsop County, April 15th through the 21st.
Second?
Second.
Yep. We have a motion to second to proclaim April 15th through 21st, 2018 Volunteer Week. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Commissioners, sorry.
Please.
I want to extend an invitation. There is a volunteer event on Tuesday, the 17th, beginning at 6:30, and it's going to be held out at Fort Clatsop. Oh, perfect. Okay. I wanted to make
go
sure
ahead.
you were all, I wanted to make sure you were all aware of that and invited to that as well, so.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Monica.
Should we list the names here that are on this?
Well, if it's part of the record, is that enough? Or do you want to read them aloud now?
This will go in the record because it's part of the agenda, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the record. It's, I can go through that just real quick.
It'll be covered at the volunteer.
We'll go ahead, yeah, it'll be covered at the, and that's the more appropriate
Okay.
time to recognize these folks.
Okay.
The entire, in the matter proclaiming April 15th through 21st, 2018 Volunteer Week, the entire community can affect positive change with any volunteer action, no matter how big or small. Volunteers give their time and expertise while expecting no compensation and are essential to the success of many educational, health, cultural safety, and human service programs. The giving of oneself in service to another empowers the giver and the recipient. Our county volunteer force of over 500 is a great treasure. Now therefore be it resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners honor and thank the dedicated volunteers of this county who give so freely of their valuable time, energies, by proclaiming the week of April 15th through April 21st, Volunteer Week. Thank you. And yeah, definitely look forward to attending that presentation on Tuesday, the 17th. Is that what day it is, 17th? Yeah. Okay, now we're going to move on to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during business from the public must fill out and sign a public comment sign-in card. We have a couple guests tonight. Our first guest tonight is Pamela Way. Come on up, Pamela, and state your name and address for the record, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Webb. My address is 1566 Irving Avenue, Apartment 6, in Astoria. I wanted to comment about the proposal that you all will be considering this evening that relates to the creation of a homelessness fund in addition to the sale of county property to initiate that fund. I think this is an issue that raises a couple of questions. First of all, I couldn't find anything in the background that told me that you all had established a homelessness fund. I'd like to kind of, as a point of information, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd like to be corrected if I am. And secondly, the sale of county property is something I believe that should be done in the context of a master plan for all resources that the county has that is usually related in the capital improvements program of most local governments. It prevents you from proposing to suddenly get rid of a piece of land that perhaps there was a long-term plan for the use or the sale of that land. So I'm not sure that it's the best kind of government action to reference a plan and then a fund that you all have not in fact created, and then immediately take action that perhaps is not consistent with the CIP that the county should maintain. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Chris Farrar. Come on up, state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
My comments may be somewhat moot at this point. My name's Chris Farrar. I'm here tonight to speak for the Board of Directors of the Clatsop County Soil and Water Conservation District. And you had a presentation a few minutes ago about the Fishhawk Dam project. And we had a board meeting this morning and reviewed the project, and as a board, we decided, I'm looking for our letter that we've written, which I will read here in a second when I bring it up. We decided we strongly support this effort, and I think you heard a lot of good reasons why that is. For me, it goes even beyond just simply improving habitat. It's kind of building relationships with other organizations and becoming stronger that way by constantly helping one another get grants for their work and to just help move things along. So I think that's as important as what it's going to do for the fish, what it does for the people of the county overall. So here's what I was asked to read tonight, and you know, I have issues with these little screens, so you'll forgive me. To whom it may concern, the Clatsop, sorry about that, I have visual issues. The Clatsop Soil Water Conservation District, established under ORS, big long number there, in recognition of ever-increasing demands on renewable natural resources of the state and the need to conserve and protect and develop such resources, hereby supports the Fishhawk Lake Project Solutions Team proposal as outlined in the abstract dated October 2017. The Clatsop County Soil and Water Conservation District has worked with the Fish Lake Reserve and community for the last 50 years and was especially concerned about the impact of major flood events of 1996 and 2007, which was dramatically shown there a minute ago, on natural resources in this area. We support efforts to increase spillway passage, alleviate the impacts of major flood events in the future, decrease sediment loads in the lake for fish, and improve water quality. The Clatsop County Soil and Water Conservation District is in full support of updating existing fish ladder to meet state and federal passage requirements for the benefit of lamprey, steelhead, coho, and cutthroat. The Fish Lake community, the Fish Lake Reserve community have our support. Sincerely, Clatsop County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors. And I just add to that that I also serve as Vice Chair on the North Coast Watershed Association, and we work closely with the Soil Conservation Districts as well. And although we haven't really discussed this at the North Coast Watershed Association meetings, I am quite certain that they strongly support this effort as well. We're trying to make strong connections with the Nehalem Watershed Council because our area of jurisdiction or concern butts the Nehalem watershed, and that's a huge watershed with miles and miles of fish habitat. And the unique thing about that project, and I'll just take another minute here just to say that idea of letting that sediment, instead of collecting in back of the dam, but pass it through under the dam, is just a great idea, because those gravels are needed in the streams below our dams. That's one real problem we have out here. There's a lack of gravels. That's what the fish spawn in. But gravels do a lot more than that as well. They create zones in streams. There's usually what we call pool and riffle kind of geomorphology, the shape of the stream channel, so that water flows along. It comes up to a little mound of gravel, it flows through that, and it's called the hyperrelic zone. It's really important for the biotic community that supports fish. That's that movement of fluids through that porous medium and upwelling is a way nutrients mix and the biology works. And so it's that sediment getting passed through is a huge important thing. So I really appreciate the Commission's willingness to also write a letter of support on that. And one final thing, today Commissioner Sullivan mentioned the meeting in town here on the Lower Columbia River estuary, and it's a biannual meeting that presents a lot of papers. There was one this afternoon on cyanobacteria, and if you know about those algal blooms now, there's more of this blue-green algae, which is a organism that produces toxins that are poisonous to humans and lots of other animals. And in fact, they now think are involved in causing such things as Parkinson's disease and other nerve disorders. So we want to avoid stagnant warm water reservoirs wherever they occur, and this project will. I've talked too long.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Chris.
I could talk all night about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gotta love an expert.
All right, let's, looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Motion to second to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Tonight we have a public hearing. This is the time set for a public hearing on ordinance 18-04, taxing marijuana sale to refer to voters. May we have the staff report, please?
I guess I'm doing it.
All right.
This is, every county and city in the state has the option of asking the voters to impose a 3%, up to a 3% tax on the sale of marijuana within its jurisdictions. Recreational marijuana, excuse me. Many of the other counties in the state and many cities in our county have passed that. It has to be on the November ballot in an even-numbered year. So if you want to put it on the ballot, it needs to be on this November. I know in the past the board had talked about it, but we had to wait until November of this year to move forward. The format of this is what was presented by League of Oregon Cities and Association of Oregon Counties working together. So this is basically the same ordinance that's been adopted throughout the state. Tonight would just be the first hearing on it and first reading, and then the ordinance would be adopted 2 weeks from now if you choose to move forward. And at that point, there would also be a resolution to put the matter on the ballot to refer it to the voters.
Thank you. May I have the first reading by short title only?
This is in the matter of adopting a tax on the retail sale of marijuana items within the unincorporated Clatsop County.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest report? Seeing no conflict of interest, I will now open the public hearing. If you wish to testify, come forward and give your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone tonight that would like to testify on this public hearing? Seeing no public testimony, and I don't see any staff response. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad we're talking about it. I saw the fiscal impact said $50,000 annually in revenue. Is that net or gross? I mean, I'm thinking about the staff costs that will be involved in this.
Initially, that was the best estimate we could get based on there being 3 marijuana stores in the county, but it turns out since then it looks like there's 5 now operating and possibly more planned. So what we have seen in other jurisdictions and so on, rural, they were estimating, staff was estimating around 15 to 18,000 per store.
So, and that's net revenue after deducting any kind of staff costs.
I don't think staff has gone that far, no.
Okay.
It's a best guess at this point.
Okay, so that's gross. Well, that's good to know, because when I looked on page 129, we talked about tax remittance in cash, item C6, and I wonder, because I hear stories about people coming in with duffel bags full of money, and maybe I've just worked in too many criminal justice situations, but I'm concerned about the safety and well-being of staff, large amounts of cash can be, we could call it an attractive nuisance. So I wonder if we'd have to reconstruct or offer some kind of facility, some kind of safe place to keep staff safe when we're dealing with taking cash. The Department of Revenue, for example, had to make some modifications.
And we can do an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Revenue.
Oh, okay, all right. And I wondered about the legal costs, because we talk on page 130, section 5, about enforcement. And, well, I imagine there would be legal costs. I'm just kind of looking to, I understand this is the first time we're doing it, and so we don't know, but I'm just trying to be proactive, thinking about what we'll be facing down the line if we were to enact this, so that we can responsibly consider it.
Yeah, I think on that point, and certainly this could change in the future, but just based on everything I've read and talking to other jurisdictions, because this is such a new legal industry, what other jurisdictions have said is people in this business are actually highly cooperative, because they want this business to be taken, as a legitimate business. That doesn't mean we would never have any enforcement issues with, collecting the tax, but based on what I've heard, again, they've been very cooperative in every jurisdiction that I've talked to.
Will we be getting into the black market, folks? Because I was reading in the paper some concerns about the black market and, bleeding of illegal. I don't know if we'll be involved with it, or if that's just strictly the criminal justice side. Okay, so no need to worry about that. When I look on page 131, again in enforcement, 4E, failure to pay, Clatsop County Director of Assessment and Taxation and Code Enforcement Officer. Do we still have a code enforcement officer? No, we didn't, because we used to have one. I remember Commissioner Birkby was so excited and happy when she got money in the budget for a code enforcement officer, and I thought I'd heard that position went away. I think it's important when we're looking at exploring new territory where there are lots of ways to go wrong, that we think about the necessity for having a code enforcement officer in order to respond to those concerns. On page 132, records, section 7, records kept and available for inspection, says we can audit their books, and I wonder what's the cost and availability of staff to perform the audits, because we always call that keeping honest people honest when we audited books. And again, I'm not objecting to any of this. I'm just trying to contemplate, as we're considering costs and benefits, that we take time to consider all these. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Kathleen.
I think you bring up some good points. Would we, if we were to get a code enforcement officer in, or someone to help audit the books, would we expect that could be paid for out of the taxes that we receive, or how would we do that?
50 grand isn't.
That wouldn't do anything, huh?
Well, I don't know in my experience.
I don't know. I don't do this sort of thing. So Monica,
Wouldn't
you're
this
here.
just be done like every other situation where we collect revenues for,
Yeah.
like, short-term rentals and?
We collect.
Same mechanisms.
I would think it would be the same.
Probably, I don't know, Suzanne knows the number, $200 million worth of revenue every year.
So the collection isn't necessarily done by a code enforcement officer. It's done by
No,
someone else.
no, that's done by assessment taxation staff.
Functions.
Good to know.
Okay, seeing no more further comments or questions, the public hearing will be continued to April 28th. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the business agenda. And our first item on the business agenda is accept high bids for the March 27, 2018 auction and sign deeds, page 137. Good evening, Serpa. Can I have the staff report, please?
Chair Lee and members of the board, good evening. You directed me to sell certain county properties at your February 28th meeting, and we held an auction on March 27th after having it in the paper for 4 times, once a week, for 4 weeks. And we offered 11 properties for sale. Out of those 11, 7 sold. There was some bidding going on. We made over $50,000 over the minimum bids in the difference, so there was good things going on there. And then several of these parcels had an option that they could put down 10% of the minimum bid on the day of the auction and then the balance in 30 days. They all paid in full by 5 p.m. on that day. So all the funds have been collected. The total funds that we made at that auction were $276,700. There are some costs associated with this, and I just got recently all the bills in, so then that will be at your next board meeting. So I'm just asking for your board to adopt the resolution and order accepting the high bids and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
I had one question, though. So what happens to the other 4 parcels?
They will be offered through sealed bid process, and we open sealed bids every third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. So I have mailed out to the ones that did not sell to their adjoining property owners and interested parties the forms. So we're just waiting for the sealed bids to come in, and we'll see what happens.
Good, you haven't given up. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the resolution in order accepting the high bids and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt the resolution order accepting the high bids and authorize the chair to sign the deeds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, and I did forget to mention that 4 of those 7 parcels did go to the adjoining property owners, so
That's good.
it's very good.
Yeah, that's
Great.
good.
Our next item is the adopt proposed fee schedule to be implemented April 12th, 2018, page 159. May I have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. As a result of Ordinance 18-1, the short-term rental application, there is a fee proposed, and this fee would cost $450, and it would be distributed among all of the departments that will be doing work for this process. There's also a fee for the Assessment and Tax Office to collect for an enterprise zone application fee, and that fee would be charged to cover the costs associated with the ORS 285C. And then there's 2 additional ones out of the out of the Community Development Department, and it's a rural addressing fee. And this is a fee that we had a fee study conducted several years ago, and during that process, they didn't take into account the work that's being done by the Planning Department, who actually processes the application. They took into account all the work done by the Roads Department, but not the Planning Department. And so we're increasing that fee to account for those costs as well. Pursuant to ORS 294.16, we're asking that the board allow an opportunity for public comment for any persons who may be interested in speaking. And then once you take those comments into consideration, we propose that you adopt the fee schedule as implemented.
So I can open the public hearing now?
It's not a public hearing, it's just an opportunity for public comment.
So it's not a public hearing?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Before I open up for comments from the public, do any of the members of the board have questions for staff?
Oh, what a surprise.
Commissioner.
So code enforcement costs, are those included in the planning department's $50? Were they contemplated or not?
For the short-term rental fee?
Yeah.
Yes. And the code enforcement piece of that is more of the building codes division. And so the breakout is assessment and tax would be collecting $50, planning would be collecting $50, building codes would be collecting $250, and the health department for environmental health would be collecting $100. So the total fee will be $450, and it's going to be distributed amongst those departments based on that distribution amount.
Pardon me, I see I wasn't clear. I'm not talking about the initial, I'm talking about ongoing code enforcement. Is that?
That's not part of this fee.
That's not part,
no.
okay, thank you. That was my question.
Any more questions for staff? Okay, is there any, this is an opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment tonight on this ordinance? Seeing no public comment, I would look for a motion recommended motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the board allows the opportunity for public comment, and after considering all comments, adopt the proposed fee schedule to be implemented effective April 12th, 2018, as presented. That's what I have in mind. Is that what I'm supposed to
Yep,
say?
that's it.
Good, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I said it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second, to, the board allows the opportunity for public comment, and the board has allowed the opportunity for public comment, and after considering all comments, adopt the proposed fee schedule to be implemented effective April 12th, 2018, as presented. Seeing no further deliberations, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, staff. Our final item on the business agenda today is the sale of county-owned property for homelessness fund, page 167.
Yeah, this is not a new idea, I don't think, to commissioners. It's something that I had bounced off you previously, and based on feedback I got, wanted to get it on the agenda and see what you think. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, this particular piece of property, well, first of all, I think Ms. Webb asked a good question. We don't have a homelessness fund. That's the idea behind selling the property and using the proceeds to seed that fund. That if an opportunity comes up to address a homeless issue in the community, we don't really have funds budgeted or available to do that right now. This would sort of put us in a position to do that. This particular piece of property that we're talking about is a property that the county has owned since 1926. They acquired it through tax foreclosure. And just to put that in perspective, I'm actually not sure how many hundreds of acres of property the county owns, but we own lots and lots of property. This is a piece of property that in the past has been deemed to be surplus, and we continue to believe that that's the case. One of the things that's attractive about this particular piece of property is, as opposed to much of what we do acquire through tax foreclosure, which frankly doesn't usually have very high value, this property, happenstance, but because of where it's located, it's in an area that's developed rapidly. We think it'd be a very attractive piece of property to a developer. So unlike some of the pieces of property, and sometimes we sell property you saw on the list for a matter of a few $1,000s, this is a piece that we think certainly could generate a lot more than that. And so the idea would be to at least offer this piece for sale, take the portions of the revenue that the county controls and use those to seed a homelessness fund, and we would be in a position then to react for needs or opportunities when they came up. How that would affect future property sales, I think we'd have to look at, we do this every year. We go through property sales every year. I think we'd have to look at if there are properties in future years that we also might want to use to provide capital to this fund. We may or may not choose to do that. So be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Council, did you have some comments here also?
I just had one correction. Of course, the funds that we would receive from the sale get distributed to the taxing district. The county board controls 3 taxing districts, and we'd initially written this for the funds that go to the county general fund, rural law, and road district 1 to be retained for the homelessness fund. But we can't do that for rural law because it's supposed to be for law enforcement, and we can't do it for roads because it's supposed to be for roads. And my mistake in getting that in there. So the motion, if you choose to go forward, would just be that the proceeds received by the county general fund would be used for the homelessness.
So we're going to cross out rural law district and road district.
Yes,
That would-
please.
so
Thank
the motion
you.
would look as it is now. The potential motion, recommended motion, would removing those two items. Okay. Very
Thank you,
good.
that was my question. Glad we're on. Yeah.
Thank you, staff. And so do we have any questions or comments?
I do, yeah.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Okay, I have several concerns about this. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it's just that it was, there seems to be a couple things going on here. One, the sale of the property and the attractiveness of the property. That, in my mind, that's one thing. And then the other thing is, what do we do with the money once it's sold? And it's earmarked in this that it would go towards a homelessness fund. And so that's a discussion in and of itself. How will the homelessness fund be set up? Who will decide to do what? And there's already some money that would be taken off to other districts, right?
Most of the money gets taken out for the other districts.
Okay, so, and then, so that seems like that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. But I am, one thing is, from what I learned from looking into the housing study for Tillamook County, one of the things that they said is that the reality is that in order to get affordable housing, workforce housing, most likely municipalities and governments are going to have to contribute to that. It's not going to, the developers are going to go for the higher end because that's how they're going to make the money. And how to keep affordable housing in the communities is by, one method is to do restricted deed. And so it seems to me that this property may be ripe for us to develop or to get some kind of guarantee that this would go into more affordable housing. It would, I don't know if the bus goes out in that area, restricted deeds, but we're not going to be making more land. And so this has been held in county hands since 1929. I would like to see us imagine it a little bit further, perhaps maybe table this so we can discuss it and work on it more. Because right now in the proposal there's an auction between 500,000 and $1 million. That's a big range, and if you were is that land going to be divided up into what size parcels? So there's a great deal of money that potentially could be made by this land. Is there a way that the citizens of Clatsop County could benefit that more fully rather than just selling it off as, just as raw land?
Commissioner, this is tax foreclosed land. We just hold it in trust for the taxing districts. The statute is very clear on what our restrictions are. It gets sold at public auction.
Okay, so, but we can decide when we're going to sell it to public auction.
You can decide when you're going to sell it at public auction, and you certainly cannot sell it. You know, it's categorized right now for holding for another business. Holding for another government. But should you decide to change the categorization, and which would be this would all be coming back to you for further process. The whole sale process that you have reviewed as Serpa brought forward tonight, the final sale, that whole process starts. If you decide to go forward with this, the property's on the categorization list. You then review it for categorization. It then comes in on the sale list. You review the minimum bids, you review the sale process, and then it's sold, and then, the county gets its share, which is 20%? 12% of this. So, and then if you get that, if you decide, then that 12% that you've received would be placed in this fund should you choose to develop the fund. But unfortunately, with tax foreclosed land, since we're just managing it in trust, we're very restricted on what we can do with it.
Uh-huh. Have there been interest from the community on this property? Do we know what they're hoping to do with it? Because on the map, even though, and I understand the reasoning because it's already near development, but it's also close to undeveloped land. So has there been interest in this property?
This property was offered or categorized for sale and was put on the agenda to be sold about 10 years ago, I think.
It was 2007.
Okay. And at that time, it was removed from sale because there was some interest in the adjoining property owner, which is the Fort Stevens State Park. Mm-hmm. So for 10 years, since 2007, we've been holding this property, waiting for them to come up with a plan. And we have yet to hear any plan from them. So rather than just sit on that property, we talked to Cam about, should we offer this for sale and categorize it? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how it came up. It's just looking at our inventory.
And is it wetland right now?
Some of it is, based on the maps that I looked at. Right now, it looks like roughly 9 acres out of that 14.5 is usable. That's not wetlands. But obviously, that can change depending on how someone wants to develop it.
If someone were to get this and develop, who's responsible for building the roads and the sewer and whatnot within that parcel?
The developer.
The developer.
Okay, because, I mean, okay, that's,
Do you have a map of the property in front of you? I'm not
it's
sure.
hard to read, but yeah, I do
Okay,
have
I
it.
didn't look at the packet, but when Cam and I were discussing this, it's since we've been holding that property or since we've removed it, there is another new development right in that same area that's been developed. So
Yeah, I think this is a
You know,
great,
I think it's a great idea. I
opportunity.
think the commission has been talking for such a long time about what do we do about homelessness? And we go around and around, we've brought it up. This is a possibility we don't know exactly, how it's going to go, what it will sell for, we don't know. We don't know exactly what we will do with the funds, but we will have funds that we can possibly begin to remedy some aspect of this problem.
Well,
absolutely, it sets a precedent too that will allow us to do this again in the future.
And it shows that the commission and the county is looking at this issue. We are not ignoring it. We are supportive of it and trying to move forward.
Well, it's really a good problem to have. We've got this lovely, I'm going to call it lovely, piece of property, and
It is lovely.
Yeah, we might get money for it, but I really appreciate Commissioner Sullivan's raising the issue. Is it possible it could be the nexus of even greater value? Because is it possible, because homelessness, who doesn't want to do something about that? Of course we do. But could we step back and consider a little bit more, Oregon Housing and Community Development, Kim Travis, we've been meeting with her in Salem talking about projects. If we have raw land that's developable, the federal government is going to come up with some more money. There are various sources of more money available. I'd like to have us take a fuller look at it, a deeper look, because the first impulse is to go, yeah, let's do that. On the other hand, if we step back and consider, we might get better benefit. Okay, so somebody do the math. 12% of $1 million is
120 grand.
120. So say between 60 and 120 grand. That's a good hunk of money. Is it possible, though, that if we had land that we could use for something, that we could produce something that benefited people here even more than that? So I'd like to have us take a look and price out various scenarios and look at how to get them. I appreciate the phrase maximum benefit for people here in Clatsop County, because I love that you brought forward the idea, and it's a stimulating discussion, but maybe just a little more consideration of this and looking at our state partners, because the document recording fee has been increased, and there's going to be more state money available. So they're looking for projects that are shovel-ready. They're looking to provide, AOC and the League of Oregon Cities are working on providing training and technical support to allow communities to have the essential support to be able to develop projects that are even more complete in addressing the needs than just the cash. I'd like us to stop and think about it a little bit more. It's a good problem to have, and of course we want to do something. Let's take a minute to think about it and do the best thing.
Okay, I think the best thing right now is to pass this.
I do too.
I'd look for a motion.
I move that the 14.46 acre parcel be offered for sale at a public auction, and that the proceeds received by the county general fund, rural law, we're scratching that, sorry, be used to establish a homeless fund, to be used to support community efforts to reduce homelessness.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberations?
I would like to take more time to look at this issue. I don't think we're going to be penalized by taking a little more time to look at it. As a county, we've submitted $50,000 for the housing study. A lot of the housing is in municipalities, not in the county. And I really think that we need to just take a little more time to see what our options are on this.
I am really puzzled, since both Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Sullivan have been very vocal about homelessness. Here's an opportunity that's been brought to us through thoughtful consideration, and yet you want to delay.
My point that I brought up is referring to the Tillamook housing study, when they're talking about deeded, restricted deeds, and housing that's affordable. That's because some of the homeless are people that are working and can't afford housing. And so how do we put into the system housing that workers, hourly wage workers, people that are making $30,000 and under, where do those people live? And if we have the potential of providing housing that would help them, that does help the homeless problem.
Well, this is a direct, like Commissioner Nebaker just said, this is an opportunity to where we're going to get some funds to do the exact thing you're asking.
But land is very valuable.
Well, yeah,
Well,
fine.
it's been sitting there for all this time, and I just...
Well, I mean, listen, it's been sitting there since 1926. I guess there's no reason to get in a hurry.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, really, we all of us agree. We want to address this.
Then we have to do something about it.
Well, I think
Can't
pausing.
just talk and wait and delay.
Well, I'll be attending Astoria's homelessness task force on Monday, and I know that they're going to be addressing some grant money for homeless youth. But we have a housing study that's out. Perhaps they can give us some recommendations. I don't see how a month or 2 months is going to make a difference after this has been in inventory since 29?
26?
Well, that's fine. You can explain to them why we didn't
Who are we
establish
explaining it?
in the
Who
fund.
are we explaining this to?
Well, I think, I think everybody's making good points here, but I guess I would say a couple of things. You're really talking about the difference between something that's probably longer term, a matter of years probably, before we would see anything develop out there, because we have to find somebody to buy it, and they have to get financing to develop it, and they'll have to go through that process, the city of Warrenton. But I think on the other side of that, to say, well, I mean, what does it hurt, if it's a couple months, if it's 6 months? I'm guessing there are people out on the street that would think that time would mean an awful, awful lot. And so my thought on this anyway was to try to address immediate needs that are already out there that we know of. And we know there's a longer term need here too, but I think as Commissioner Sullivan said, in 6 months or so, we'll know a lot more about that need. We'll have the housing study done, and that's going to require significant commitment and focus of resources and effort by everyone in the county if we're going to have any significant impact on implementing the recommendations that'll come out of there. So I mean, we certainly could wait, but I mean, I think there are people that probably would say, hey, if you could help me now, why don't you do it?
Yeah. And I appreciate that. That's a very good summary of the issues that are facing us. My concern is act in haste, repent at leisure, because what I see is that we're going to have more money coming into the state systems so that we'll have the capacity to do more with this than we can right now. And it will be, I mean, I understand, justice delayed is justice denied, and suffering ignored is suffering exacerbated, but still, it just always makes sense to me to stop and think more about something before acting on this. And as I said, it's a good problem to have. I'd hope that we would have a greater yield if we held off a little bit and just learned a little more and considered more before we acted.
What is a little bit, and what will be considered?
The housing study in 6 months.
The housing study is one. I mean, do we have people lined up now that want to buy this land for $1 million?
Well, we don't know because it's not for sale.
Right, but...
That's what we're trying to get to.
What we do is put this on the market.
I think we need to wait.
Yeah, I think that, I'm not even going to. We have a motion and a second to, is there any further deliberations?
I guess, again, I want to go back to the guidance that was provided by county council, because I'm not sure if everybody's really understanding that. You know, I've heard suggestions that somehow the county could develop this. We can't. Our only option with this property will be to sell it at some point. That's it, because it was tax foreclosed, because of the way we acquired the property. So you know, we can sell it now, we can sell it a year from now, we can sell it 5 years from now or 10 years from now, but we won't be developing it ourselves.
But I understand, if we looked at this housing situation through our housing study, and we looked at if the financing options changed because of bills that have been passed in Salem and revenues that are coming in and state programs that are developing, which is the case, then it could be we could sell it later, just slightly later, to someone who could pencil out a project because there's more state money and more support to develop these programs.
I think
what
the
I'm
needs are
hoping.
great and immediate. And we have been talking about this for years.
This particular land, you've been talking about this
No, we've
particular
been
land?
talking about needing to move forward with homelessness, and I don't understand why the housing study is going to make all the difference in whether this piece of land would be sold or not.
Well, I hope it's going to make a difference. It's $100,000. I hope we're getting some information from
That
that
has nothing to do with it.
study. It does, and when you're talking about,
Apples and oranges. Well, we agree to disagree.
That's fair to say that. Yeah.
I'm very disappointed.
I am too.
I'm disappointed in the inability for us to discuss this, but that's the way it is, so.
Another growth opportunity.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberations? See no further deliberations. Huh? We haven't voted yet. I'm going to get to
Oh, he's
that
getting
in just a
there.
second. So we have a motion and a second on the, we have a motion and a second to move that the 14.46 acre parcel be offered for sale at a public auction and that the proceeds received by the county general fund be used to establish a homeless fund to be used to support community efforts to reduce homelessness. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No,
The motion fails. Now we're going to move on to commissioners' reports. Commissioner Thompson.
Okey doke. Clatsop Soil and Water District was this morning. I learned how to deal with manure pile contamination. You cover it, you put a gutter around it, and you control the runoff. I don't know if anybody needs to know that, but I thought it was interesting. The native plant sale will be on April 21st. April 21st, the native plant sale that is a benefit and a fundraiser for the Clatsop Soil and Water Conservation District between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. across from the Safeway on Leaf Erickson. There's a big field there, and so they're going to have their native plant sale. It's a good cause. I went to the Veterans Outreach Opportunity, and it was interesting because they passed out information. I thought this was, here are these little coasters, and they passed out how to contact your veterans support people. So I thought that was a great way to do outreach. Oregon Housing and Community Services, as part of the AOC Housing Subcommittee, what we're trying to do is to look at how many housing units do we need, for what kind of populations, where, at what cost. They're going to have 8 meetings around Oregon. Oregon Housing and Community Solutions, the League of Oregon Cities, and the Association of Oregon Counties. This is our partnership, and so we're going to have 8 meetings. It looks like the closest one to ours is going to be in Tillamook, so I'm going to be attending that. Very excited and happy about that. Also, oh my goodness, I just have so much information. I don't want to belabor stuff with you. I would say in regards to marijuana, Rob Bovette's been meeting with U.S. Attorney Billy Williams. There's a massive overproduction problem in Oregon that's bleeding out nationally. There's a conflict in rural residential Oregon, the smell, the noise, the light pollution, water use, and that sort of thing. Lawsuits have been filed, more legal stuff is coming. I don't know what will result from that. There's a whole bunch of constitutional tax issues. Building codes, I don't know if this is, I know, I thought your head would turn, Gail. Building codes, they're looking at, is it constitutional or legal for a city or county government to delegate authority to enforce building codes? And they're saying, if not, housing starts will grind to a halt. So there's a lot of action in Lane County about that. I have more information if you're interested in that. PV Hall, I don't know if anybody else cares about this, but PV Hall is on Oregon State University campus. It's being rebuilt. It's using cross-laminated timber. When the Oregon Wood Products Working Group met, they were giving out a report about what caused the failure, and there was, I'm quoting because this isn't my field of expertise, there was a material defect that resulted in the delamination of one panel. It was the material only, not the design. So now what they're doing is improving their quality assurance and quality control to check the materials better. And as they said, this stuff happens with concrete or steel or wood, so it's another learning experience. So they are having more procedures to validate the integrity of the panels. John Huffman, who's used to be a state representative, came to talk to us. He's the director of the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development for the state of Oregon. They have money. They want to help us. That's the short version, and I have more details on that too. What's coming up? There's stuff coming up. I got an invitation to go to the Crook County Coordination Conference. I can't go on May 19th, but they said, would I pass this along to any member of my county that wants to go to Crook County on May 19th of this year? I have an engraved invitation that you can put your name on it. Thank you.
We all got those.
Aw.
So.
All right, somebody in the audience can have
Let's
this.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sullivan.
Hi. Since we last met, I attended the Congresswoman Bonamici's town hall meeting. I've attended both the candidate forums for the offices that are open in this area. I went to a very nice service at the Grace Episcopal Church on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., which is very moving. It was amazing, the speech that they had. They quoted from the speech that he gave the day before he was killed, and how much of it still rings true today. I also attended the Columbia Estuary Conference, which we've talked about. It's a really impressive conference. This is the second one that I've attended. And they worked hard this time to get a special discount for local people to go, because the stuff that they talk about is important to fishermen, it's important to developers, it's important to quality of life here. It also, because it's talking about ocean rising, and it's also, I think, the work that they do. There are scientists there. There are also people that work on mitigation, wetland mitigation. I think that's a job growth potential in this area. I would like to see us working towards that, to encourage that. I would like to see a county wetland mitigation bank. I know this is not my idea. I know this is an idea that many, many people have been working on for a long time, but I would like to somehow get that into action. I think it's important, and it's becoming increasingly more important with conditions that they're on today. Tomorrow, or Friday, I will be attending the FTLAC meeting in Salem, and that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Commissioner Sullivan, maybe you could have talked a bit about this memo we got from Parks, where your name is mentioned, about the
Was that just
appreciate the
handed out
interest shown
today?
by Commissioner Sullivan.
I didn't.
Yeah, maybe you could just speak to that just a bit. That's, I think you're on that board.
Is this for the,
I'm sorry, I thought that you'd already had that.
no, I hadn't read that.
So, yeah. Maybe you could speak to it on the next meeting or something.
Okay. I did sit on one of their meetings, but unfortunately, their meeting conflicts with my Northwest Senior Disability Board meeting, and so I can't always make that. But I'm very impressed with the Clatsop County Recreational Lands and Planning Advisory Committee, and they have wonderful notes. If you want to know what's going on in their meetings, they have notes to follow up, and so that's all I can say.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to
That's right.
throw you off
That's
there. Commissioner Nebaker.
Okay, I attended the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting, and you have a letter here. HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, is making available $43 million to implement projects in up to 11 communities across the nation, 5 of which will be rural communities like Clatsop County, to help demonstrate how a coordinated community approach to serving homelessness among youth, age 24 and younger, can dramatically reduce homelessness. HUD will make a minimum of $1 million available to each selected community for project applications. The amount available to a selected community above $1 million will be determined based on the percentage of youth among all selected communities that reside in each community and the poverty rate of each community. So here we have a letter that Chair Lee.
Yeah, did you get a chance to review this letter? I'd like to, by consensus, direct staff to send this letter, and I'll sign it.
Oh, yeah, I
It's
got it.
interesting because,
Yeah.
just as an aside, if we would have had some money in a homeless program, that this would show that we got some skin in the game. If we had some
Would.
money.
It would. Something that was brought up at the meeting, that the remodel for OYA for the new jail, we discussed what would be beneficial for the public to hear through different people's interest, like business models. That this is what we have supported will be savings ongoing because of staffing, and it will be less cost to remodel than to build from the ground up. Plus, it will be using an existing building, which will utilize something that already exists. And it will benefit property owners to help alleviate increased thefts. So that's also another constituent. And it will help somewhat with mental health, because they will be able to hold people longer in order to get them connected with agencies that can help people deal with opioid addiction. The council still needs a layperson, so they need 2 people on the board that they have not been able to fulfill, and a city manager. So if anyone knows or is interested in being on this council, it would be appreciated.
Could you repeat the council again, please?
Public Safety Coordinating Council.
They need as 2 citizens, or?
They need 1 layperson, 1 citizen, and they need a city manager. I'm also on this council. We need it. Let's see. I'd like to say something about some recent emails that we've received. So I'm now well into my second term as a county commissioner, and I've worked with several county managers. I voted many years ago for our form of government in Clatsop County. I thought then, and I still believe, that this is the best of both worlds. There is no perfect form of government. There's nothing perfect in this world, but I see that this is the best form of government for a county. We now have a professional, experienced, educated in their field county manager. And we have a commission that volunteers to set policies. We are not professionals. We are lay people. But we have authority. And when I first took office, this authority was clearly defined to me. And that is that we go through the county manager for all kinds of things. And we direct the county manager. And we set policies that the county manager then tries and professionally has done and competently has done, follow our direction. Case in point, what happened tonight and failed. The county manager oversees all aspects of the county. We cannot even imagine all of the details, all of the work that is involved in this. That's why we hired a highly professional, well-educated, and experienced county manager. My experience is I get calls from constituents from time to time, and I also have questions and needs that have to be addressed. I have never failed to receive a good outcome when I go through the county manager. Sometimes he will direct me to talk to staff. Sometimes he will talk to staff and get back to me. And it's always worked very well. Based on the emails that have come recently, we have what I believe a problem, that is we are not understanding our defined roles. And they are separate, and when we work within those roles, I believe it works very well for everyone. We also had a suggestion that perhaps we could receive some help, maybe training, to further understand our defined roles and how to make things work better. And I am very supportive of this suggestion to involve ourselves with.
Very well said.
I would like to hear if there is agreement that some of the commissioners would like to see this further training, understanding.
I'd be happy to make a comment, if I may.
Well, about this.
Yes,
Yeah.
about that, yeah. So yes, I would certainly be happy to have someone come in and talk to us and do to discuss all of those things that have been brought up. But I also wanted to say that as an elected public official, that it is my job to represent the citizens who voted me in. And I take the role of being an elected public official very seriously, and that if I have questions, I know that other people have questions, and it is my honor to be able to ask these questions. And I think that it's only reasonable to think that from time to time we will have disagreements, and that's part of the deal. To discuss things, we're not always going to be of the same mind. And just because we disagree doesn't mean that we are putting someone else down, that we're saying they're not doing their job. We're saying that I have a disagreement on this particular issue. It doesn't upturn the entire system of government as an elected official to not agree. And we are not, I don't see myself as a volunteer. I get a stipend. I am a part-time county commissioner.
We are volunteers.
And I am, well, you can decide what you want to decide, but I see myself as a part-time county commissioner because I get paid and I have responsibilities. I swore an oath to the Constitution, and I take my role very seriously. So we're not always going to agree. That doesn't mean I think you're a bad person. It doesn't mean I think this person's a bad person. Somebody didn't do their job. I'm just saying that we see things from a different point of view. And the reason that we have 5 of us up here is that we should all be bringing our total self to this body and to discuss it in a round and full way. And eventually, you know, we can't expect unanimous agreement on every single issue. That's not realistic.
That is not what I was saying. We have defined roles. And when we work within those roles, things work well. And I would like to see us understand that a little bit better.
All right. Well, I see basically by consensus that we're interested in possibly exploring some of the recommendations that has been made by staff, and I will speak to the county manager and explore that, as it is my perception that the board would be interested in some of these recommendations. So I'll have a conversation with staff about this. Is that your report? Thank you, Commissioner. Just a few things. I attended I have an informal quarterly meeting with the executive director of CREST where we kind of talk about some of the issues that CREST faces and some of the challenges and also some of the great opportunities and successes that we've had. And so it's always a great wide-ranging discussion. And I've really, really enjoyed working with CREST over the last 6-7 years. It's been a real great opportunity for me. Attended the NOAA regular meeting of the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority. We had our yearly audit come in. Looks good. There was no deficiencies or findings. We were working on our annual plan. We've been working collaboratively with some nonprofits to buy some part of affordable housing in Tillamook County. Over the last 6 years that I've been on the NOAA board, we've really come a long ways, and we've really built the capacity of the organization. We have a great rapport with our colleagues and commissioners in Columbia and Tillamook County, and Executive Director Johnson has just done an absolute excellent job at managing staff, managing the organization, and it's really, we're really doing things that are really making a difference here in our community, and I'm really happy to be a part of NOAA, and I just want to acknowledge the good work they do and the quality of the organization. And that is all I have. County Manager Moore.
I don't have anything.
Meeting adjourned?
You don't have anything? Oh, sorry. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
So Kathleen, this is the time that we're here about.